Okay, I would like to call to order the work session of Tuesday, May 16th. And first, we have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this evening's topic is involving the police station and city hall. And the first thing we will do is have public comment. When you're making public comment, for kindness and respect, and 3 minutes max. Anybody like to follow those rules?
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this going to be public comment on the subject that we're talking about tonight, or comment on something other than the subject we're talking about tonight?
I think generally our public comment could be on any topic.
Okay.
So, Jenny, want to start? Thank you.
My name is Jenny Wright and my address is P.O. Box 627, Caney Beach. And I would like to say, I think the City Hall and the police station should stay here if possible. For sure, City Hall. I feel like it really is a community center. The number of times I walk past here, even in a day, is a lot. I walk tonight. When I leave here, I can get home in 5 or 10 minutes. I feel like this location is equal distance from north and south. And if we enlarge the city hall or improve city hall, it will become even more of a community center. Whether it's adding a little park space or a plaza or more space for meetings and things. So I definitely think it should stay here. And if there's a possibility of keeping the police station here, either by keeping a footprint, not changing the footprint, adding a second story, keeping one wall or whatever the rules are about that. I think we should look into that possibility too, just because it's so nice having both facilities right here in the middle of town. And on a related subject, if we didn't have anything here at Gower, I don't think we should sell the property and I don't think we should sell the RV park. I feel like those land resources, it's something we'll never, ever get back. It will be unaffordable in the future if we want those properties back. So keep it all here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Bob.
Bob Lundy, PO Box 1357, 5466 Street. I would like to also speak in. I can get my voice. Oh, you can hear me. In favor of keeping the city hall and police station on this property. I'm thinking in terms of moving it to the back, building it as high as necessary in order for it to be the out of the inundation zone, parking on the ground level, and if anything, just open space, having a platform on top with a ramp going around so people can walk up both to picnic and look out at the rock and so forth day in, day out, and then be familiar with where to go in case they need to escape from the tsunami.
Thank you. Next. Eric.
Hey, Eric Ostrander, PO Box 97. I just wanted to speak about the exact same thing everyone else is speaking about, the location of the city hall. I would like to see fiscal responsibility thought of pretty heavily on how much it costs for the location. It's pretty evident that we cannot build the police station here at this location with House Bill 2605. So it's pretty clear that's a no-go for the Emergency Operations Center here. But putting the city hall over at the Tullivan Cache site, I think with the price differences there, and then also take into consideration that the number of people that would then now be able to walk to City Hall, the whole Haystack Heights neighborhood, the whole south end of Tullivan that would now be within walking distance. I drew a half mile diameter circle on a map. And the number of occupied homes there versus here is relatively similar, within a half mile distance of the cache site versus the half mile distance of this site. So That's, you don't have to take my word for it. If you wanted to pull up the tax maps and draw a half-mile circle, it's not terribly difficult to do. But I just take that in consideration that there is a number of people that can walk here, but those people can't walk here. If it were there, these people wouldn't be able to walk, but then the people there would be able to walk. Kind of sticking half a dozen the other, in my opinion, looking at the walkability of City Hall. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, Hannah.
Ann Butcher, PO Box 97. I just want to put a little bit of palate cleanser in there and thank our first responders for all of their hard work this past weekend, in addition to all of the other times that they are there when we need them. So thank you, Cannon Beach Fire and police, and lifeguards when they get on board for all their hard work.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Anyone else in the audience?
Jan Siebert Werman, PO Box 778. I've said it many times before, so you maybe remember, but I would really like to keep the city hall here because it is the center of our town. And I think that putting it up at the Tolovana site, if it's even possible, with the access question and the situation with the soils there, I think it just puts it on the edge of our town instead of the center of our town. And I think the city hall needs to be in the center of our town. And as far as the police station, of course, if it needs to be up higher, then so be it, if it's able to be put there with the soils and such. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak?
No hands.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Bruce. Give us a presentation.
Just a little background on why we're here and what are some of the factors that are driving the decision that the council is going to have to make. For a long time, the city hall and the police station was planned on being located in this location. And we did study, I think, 4 or 5 other locations. And this was the one that ultimately was recommended by staff to saying that I think it was Brandon used the term the least worst. And so that's, when we were talking about what the relative benefits and downsides to everything, it kind of came down to that. And council agreed with that recommendation, and that's kind of where we've been headed for probably about a year. When we got into design, we found that there was a new requirement, and I think that Eric said it would. Eric, did you say it was House Bill 605?
It's up till 2605 from 2021.
Okay, all right. But with that, I think that the dates effectively were November of 22, that anything that was going to be was less than substantially complete as far as designs and other things. That if it was a critical structure, as a police station is considered, then it would need to be out of the not just the seismic Cascadia zone, but also the tsunami zone. And we have looked at what that would require here. And I'll ask Leslie, I think it was up 30 something feet, and then that's first floor level.
It was approximately 26 feet above grade at this site to get above the inundation, the maximum inundation zone. That number is only approximate. If we proceed, then site-specific information would need to be collected and confirmed.
Right. So essentially you're 2 stories up, and then another 2 stories on top of that, it would be the tallest building in town. And so that information also eliminated all the other, virtually all the other sites we have been evaluating, because none of them are out of that zone that we need to be. So with that, it appears that the only place that we would be able to locate the police station itself, and that's the one that has to be out of the tsunami zone, is would be at the in the vicinity of the cache. And so that's what we were talking about for that facility. We think that there's room to build the city hall there if that's what we decide. It's also possible to build the city hall here if we make that decision. So those are some of the things that we're dealing with. I will say, and I always try to keep everybody on task in terms of the cost, that this is not, we dealt with location, and I think we deferred the decision by 4 years, and the cost just went up crazily. So trying to make sure that we stay on task and get to a decision so that we can move forward. We have the right team in place, and we will do whatever it is that the council directs us to do. Are there any questions? Anything I missed?
And the cost to build
I'm sorry.
here,
Thank you. The cost to build here is about 25 million. The cost to combine both facilities is estimated at 22 million at the cache site. So there is a premium to be paid if you're going to locate it, put it in this location.
To clarify, that's City Hall here and police station there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think I sent you this information. Someone had asked me, I think it was Gary, what the cost of the police station standalone is. And I believe that was what, 9 million? Yes,
That's correct.
yeah. Now, if we do build City Hall here, well, when we build the police station, if it does end up being at the cache site, it'll be built structurally for a 9.0 seismic event from Cascadia. And also it'll be built up high enough that we really don't have to do a whole lot to take care of the tsunami impacts. Here, we have the potential for tsunami impacts, but we will also prepare the building to be able to withstand a category 4. I'm sorry, the same 9.0 from a structural standpoint. And when we're looking at, we talk about buying down the risk, and tsunamis clearly is one of the most devastating things we can face. There have been like 15 or 18 in 10,000 years, and there's always seismic events that are happening. And so when the recommendation was made, it was like our biggest threat is seismic. And so we're built to the seismic standards. Now we're required to build to the tsunami standards for the police station. Thank you for that.
Ask you a question?
Sure.
So cost wise, I mean, the way I've perceived it is sort of like, this is what it costs to build City Hall, period. You know, I mean, we've been given the cost for building it here and the cost for building it at the cache site. But I'm not sure, I mean, is there any way to cut back on the cost of City Hall? What do we give up if we cut back on the cost of City Hall? I'm not talking about the police station because that has all kinds of specialized, you know, equipment and all kinds of things in it that we can't, you know, that we really need to have. But I'm talking about City Hall. Why, I guess I'm just not getting why we can't do City Hall. Is it just because it has to be to withstand a category 9? Is that what's driving the cost? Or is there something else that's driving it so high just for City Hall? I don't know.
I understand the question. It's the size. The size is going to dictate the cost. And we've gone through and done the program. We reviewed the program with council.
I saw that. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. I mean, I understand that.
Right. And so if you're going to reduce the cost, you reduce the size.
Really? Okay. That's the only thing you could do. You can't do different materials or,
Not when you're dealing with seismic.
okay.
I'm sorry, there are different materials you can use. And And also I want to make sure that everybody understands. I think I just used the words, I said that we have a budget for City Hall and we don't. We have a preliminary estimate for City Hall. We have a preliminary estimate. We haven't, pen and to paper has not happened. It's based on the size, the type of buildings, those sorts of things that you can make estimates on before you have any drawings to work from. So-
So to address questions, I wanted to point out, we have Curtis online, our structural engineer. Jordan is from the
CMGC.
right, the contractor, and did many of these pricing exercises. We also have Keegan on the civil engineering side for any questions related to that.
Okay.
It looks like Curtis.
What is it a square foot that we're looking at here? How much per square foot? That's how I think about building, but
I don't have that in front. I think if Jordan.
Jordan may.
Yeah, give me 30 seconds and I will give you those numbers. And are you asking for broken out between City Hall and PD?
no, just for City Hall.
Copy that. Just
And Curtis from CETA has his hand up too.
Yeah, let's get the answer to this.
I just wanted to point out that one of the reasons the city hall is as expensive as it is the type of soil that we have there on the Gower Street property requires fairly deep either concrete or steel piles in order to support the building. And that's one of the reasons that as a commercial building, it's significantly more expensive than what you would see for residential foundation work or foundation on an area with a little better soils.
and to answer the question for the cost per square foot question for City Hall at Gower, we're currently at $1,166 per square foot. Now, keep in mind that cost is high because we are still carrying escalation and contingencies. So we expect that number to come down depending on the design once we get to complete design.
And it's difficult to do comparisons because if you look at what it costs to build a department store or something, a department store is only built to category 2 for seismic standards. That means it'll stay together enough that people can get out of it. Risk category 4, which we need to be, is that right after everything stops rumbling, we're pretty much back in business. So there's big differences in the requirements or the expectations, and then also what it takes to achieve that. And it was, I believe it was recognized, and Sam, when there was discussion about putting something back here, or I guess Bob would know too, but they were talking at the time that the soils couldn't take the weight, if I recall, or else it was a major foundation.
Assuming very deep pilings.
Right. Okay,
We
it's the
have,
same things we're looking at, and we are putting in deep pilings,
yeah.
big.
I feel like there's a couple other things that we've recently understood about the cache site that I'd like Leslie to just bring up.
Sure. So a couple of recent things we've been working on. One is a more comprehensive review of the easements related to access on the cache site. We've pulled several. Keegan, who's also online, has reviewed these, as well as Chris at Red Plains. What we're finding is that easement it's non-exclusive. So it gives the Tullabania mainline access. It locks that in. They have easement rights to use that access, but it doesn't give them exclusive rights. So that would be assumed to be a shared access, and the intersection would be designed to be a shared access for both uses. We couldn't find anything in the easements that limited the number of increase in traffic counts or any other sort of restriction.
We've also reached out to ODOT, but we're still working on that information to get direct information from them. So the review has been through the title report so far.
And another question that came up was whether or not it's called an inclinometer that was put in back in, I think it was 2019 when we were looking at the South Wind site. And that was, there were 2 of them that were put in, and they are there semi-permanently to go ahead and measure, is there any movement over time? And they found that there was no discernible movement. So it does not look like there's an active slide in any way. And it goes down relatively deep to determine whether or not something is occurring, below the surface. So that was good news.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Anything?
And are there additional geotech reports to come on that or?
Yes, so GRI was out there a couple weeks ago to read the measurements from that equipment and found no discernible movement since 2019 when they were installed. One of those is directly adjacent on the east side of the cache site. And so with that information, we're now working to get a full geotechnical report for the cache site.
And do we have any idea when that will be ready?
That proposal is being worked on right now, as is the survey for that site is also pending imminently getting that kicked off.
When I come back to the police department emergency operations center located here. It's possible, but is this what I'm hearing? It's possible, but it will have to be high. Yes.
Yes.
And you mentioned parking below 26 feet for the first floor. And then two additional floors above that. So I'm trying to wrap my head around, are we talking about a 40 or 50 foot tall building or a 60 foot tall building?
If the highest floor is at approximately 26 feet above grade, then the total of the building would be approximately 40 feet to the roof. It may be somewhat less than that, but again, if that's the direction we go, there would need to be more detailed analysis of this site specifically. The other item to consider, and Curtis may want to chime in here as well, is that that's one aspect, getting high, but with that, there's structural implications to keep that, to resist the impact of not only the wave, but then of the pulling back out and the debris and everything. So that it's not the same type of structure up that high as if we were building to a lower category 2 for seismic.
Yeah, the lower portion of the building would definitely need to be built much stronger than a typical building for under building parking. But in addition to that, even if the building is usable right after a tsunami, whether or not you can really get to the building due to waterborne debris and blocking roads and closing off access to it is another concern.
Wouldn't we face that same concern if the city hall was here?
The
So-
city hall would not be considered an essential facility after a tsunami. The emergency response would be coordinated out of the police station at the cache site.
But for us to do the work that needs to be done to get the town back together, the city hall is going to be necessary. And I'm just wondering if we could even get to the city hall if it was here in the heart of the town.
My understanding is that at the city hall here, there is risk of the impacts of a tsunami. So yes, you face those risks.
If we were to have the code level tsunami to occur, whatever is built on the Gower site would not be usable after that tsunami. Unless we built it high enough to get out of the water inundation zone.
I have a question about the price. So, and we'll just say 25 million, which is the top end of the estimates to have them in 2 locations. That's based on the size of the building, the style of the building, the requirements of the building. But it could change based on the site and what we find. Is that correct?
That is correct. We've made assumptions based on soil conditions, and we've been given square footages. That's what our estimates are based off of. But yes, the geotech and easements and things like that will give us additional information. We do have some level of contingency built into these numbers to handle things like that, but they can pass that amount if we get the information back that's not positive.
And I guess that's where I'm going with this is how likely is this to be more than a $25 million project? And, you know, how would we address those kinds of issues? But the other part of that question is how much does it cost us to wait? I mean, is it going to get cheaper? Or is there just, can that even be answered as far as what delay costs us in where we ultimately need to be?
I asked that question, and right now, while we're having these conversations, on the back end of this, for every month that we spend, it's gonna be I think it was 110,000,
Approximately.
maybe $120,000 a month. More than what? 25 million.
Without discovering anything new,
Right.
any hurdles.
So we do have some geotechnical information on here. And so the information that they're founding their estimate on, this preliminary estimate is based on the information we do have.
Correct. As Curtis mentioned, we do know about the soils at this site and have based our pricing on that information. The pricing at the cache site is based on the information that was gathered about Southwind. So that was before we knew the positive results of the equipment readings.
The other thing I want to say is that we've done the programming side, so we know how much square footage we're looking at, and we have a conceptual idea of what likely materials. So that's what Hamrick's pricing their piece on. There's not been an elevation that you guys have approved, a design you've approved. So from our perspective, the design can accommodate what you guys are going to want, but we don't have, what if we took the brick off and just put wood? We're not even to that detail at this moment.
And then just to be clear on the pricing for everybody else, I think I'm clear, but it would be 25 million to build the two separate sites and 23 million to build them together. Is that
22
correct?
22.
22.
22.
estimated, yes.
Okay.
Those are estimates.
There's efficiency in constructing them together.
I would also like to clarify the per square footage cost includes the total development cost. So it is a little bit more comprehensive than a square foot of building.
If you're talking about building this city hall here, does the 25, well, whatever the cost of the city hall is separate from the police department, does that cost that you are estimating include the move out of city hall by the city employees into another facility like mobiles or whatever we decide to do? I've heard that costs about 250,000.
I saw Jordan there unmute, who is the expert here.
Yes, that's correct. We have about $250,000 allowance for temporary facilities, temporary lease, some sort of relocation out of that facility so we can demolish and rebuild the new city hall there.
So that estimate for the cost of the city hall here includes that cost that you're.
Yes.
Okay.
You're correct.
All right. Could you say something about the size of the city hall? Lisa asked about, why is it so expensive, and basically because of the size. And we've had some concern expressed that the size is too large for what we need here. Could you speak to that?
Sure. So what we did is we sat down with each department individually and talked about their needs and gathered up all that information, put together just a conceptual configurations of the rooms they may need and presented that back. And in some cases, we were able to find some efficiencies. In other cases, the working conditions here are just overlapping in function and not enough. There's also not enough for growth. So we were looking at some amount of growth over the next many years to make sure that when this is built, it's not immediately too small. So what we were looking at for the city hall size is approximately just over 10,000 square feet total, which is about the size of this building. To be clear, that doesn't include the police department.
And you can answer that question for yourself, or anybody can answer that question for themselves. Go to the program and look on there and say, we don't need that, we don't need that. And that's what it would take to make the building smaller. That's what we think it's going to require. The offices, like the manager's offices, my office is going to be smaller than what the current office is. Trying to save space by doing more electronically and get rid of file cabinets, although those take, square foot costs just as much for a file cabinet as it does a person. So there is a document. If anybody wants to look at it, they can, let's call the program. And you can knock off people, you can knock off spaces, conference room, whatever. You can make this room smaller.
So did you say that the city hall is about 10,000 square feet?
From memory.
Yes,
That-
it is.
Yes.
That was closer to 15,000.
And that's mine.
That's the-
Okay, so the total for the police department and city hall is about 15,000. So the city hall itself is 10,000.
It's about 10,000.
So essentially what is happening is you can see how small the police department is. Police department moves out and we all kind of slide into whatever's left over from the size standpoint.
Well, I don't think 10,000 square feet for a city hall is lavish at all.
No.
It certainly isn't. I mean, I've heard people complaining that it's, lavish city hall and
Right.
design, but 10,000 square, there's a second family home on the north end that's 10,000 square. I'm serious, there is. So I just don't see that as,
As a reference for that, we standardized the workspaces when we did the programming effort. So offices, we standardized at 10 foot by 10 foot. Cubicle workstations are 6 feet by 6 feet. That's the general allocation per person for working office space.
it's not much bigger than this building here.
Correct.
Not much of an increase. So
How big is this building?
10,000 square feet.
This building is 10,000 square. So we're basically the same size. It's just a different configuration so that that people can work better in it.
And again, the police department would not be included in that. So there is some growth.
the size of the police department bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It just
Isn't much.
no,
it sounds
double wide,
like
double wide trailer. Right.
when we get into this project, it sounds like there's not much possibility for reduction of scope of the project. We're kind of operating off of, it sounds like pretty close to a minimum. What we need for now and maybe the next few years. The work that would need to be done for the exit and entrance to the Tolovana site, that's all in the plan for that site, or?
That is in the plan for that site. So the next step there would be a full traffic impact analysis of the development and presenting that to ODOT to work with ODOT on the intersection design and traffic control.
I think that there's a potential for reduction in the cost of the work for the police station being up there standalone. And that I think that it'll require less intersection work That's what really cost us a lot when we were looking at the South Wind site. That work, but if it's, the logging road and then the police station, which has, police cars going in and out, sometimes some citizens. I don't know if it'll have the same kind of a requirement. When we were doing it the last time, we were talking about housing, a school, a city hall, police station, all that, and it meant quite a big intersection. If it's just the police station, and if we are able to find that it is a non-exclusive easement, then there's a potential for that cost being reduced. But we won't know until we get into it.
And that doesn't, I mean, there's no one's talking about an overpass or a citizen walkway or anything like that. So anybody who is going to walk there is going to have to cross 101.
Yes.
No, thank you. Seriously, I mean, it's in the summer, people are going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour down that road.
Mhm.
Who's going to want to walk across that?
Somebody very fast.
Yeah, well, what if you're old like me? I can't walk fast.
I wanted to mention one of the other concerns about the construction effort here, and that if we did decide to build City Hall here, and we're here to listen to opinion on that, that's really, I think, the main reason behind this meeting, and maybe we need to have more public comment after a lot of this information has been laid out there. But one of the other impacts is we'll have a construction site, we'll have temporary offices, be losing how much parking in Midtown and for how long?
That hasn't been quantified, but we're talking about being out here in this space. So if we can keep most of it up on the top, the upper deck, then 6 parking places.
You think we can keep all of the lower parking?
I don't,
open?
we don't have a design for it yet, but we're gonna have to solve the level problem if we do decide to go out further to the west.
I guess in all of our consideration of this, that's just a concern, is the potential of reduced parking. And can you answer the question about how long that would be?
Jordan?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just passing it to you.
Okay. Yeah, the impact's gonna be 12 to 14 months. It's probably gonna be leaning more towards the 14 months because you're gonna be dealing with 1 to 2 months of ground improvements that you typically wouldn't have to on a project of this size.
I want to mention something else. I don't know if this will make a difference to anybody. I keep referring to buying down the risk. If we build this city hall here at grade, then we have the risk of being, I think, in the small, from the t-shirt size that they use, it would be like a small tsunami would impact us here. We could build higher, just maybe one level higher for parking. And it wouldn't get us to the category, the 9.0. But if it was I don't know, I'm just making these numbers up. If it was a 5.0 Cascadia, that might, if we've got the parking and whatever underneath, potentially that could take care of a lot of the type of tsunamis that might occur.
You know, I actually have a problem with those kind of guesses. Because we have no idea. I mean, we really don't. Earthquakes are unpredictable. They're just, I've been in an earthquake. I know what it's like. And I mean, you might not have roads left. You might not have half of the trees in town could be down. It's just, there's no, other than building to a certain category, like the category 4, I don't think going in between for a smaller tsunami or a smaller earthquake makes any sense at all. I think if you're gonna build the police station, it's got to be to 4, period. It's got to be out of the inundation zone, period. And that's that, you know? And as far as the city hall, you're taking a risk. But you're taking a risk when you build a house here.
Right.
Most of the homes here are in the inundation zone. So, you know, and the chances that you'll be in your home are a lot bigger than that you'll be in city hall. So I don't see how that kind of calculation actually is relevant at all at some point. I just don't.
You're buying down some risk. You're putting yourself in the medium t-shirt size as opposed to being in the small. So there's some risk is what but there's a cost associated with that. The numbers that we're talking about are no longer valid because we're gonna have to build up if we did. I'm just saying that if the tsunami issue is of concern for being located here, it is possible to go ahead and upgrade yourself to a medium. It's possible. But there's a cost.
That point brings up the question for me. Is the project, as we've budgeted for the best we can right now, include that parking underneath? Not here.
The project costs as presented includes the city hall single story at grade here.
At grade.
At grade.
Any idea how much it would cost to bring it up a level?
Get out the pencil.
You know, if we're just talking about parking on that first floor, and I would assume it would be in the same 10,000 square foot range as the city hall is currently designed, you're still going to be looking at, and Curtis, you'd have to speak to the structural piece, but I'm just winging it here. Say you're looking at another $500 to $600 a square foot for that space. So times 10,000, you're at $5 to $6 million.
And how many cars would that park?
$5 to $6 million. How many cars can you park? How much per car? I mean, it's not even.
It also might impact the size of the building and that you need elevators and stairwells and things like that.
For ADA.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to get upstairs.
Any other council?
But not at this time.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make any comment?
Revise your public comments.
We'll go with the new people.
Margot.
Margo.
Good evening, I'm Margo Lawlett, 3679 in Haystack Heights. So I don't just feel, I think very strongly, and I'm a very strong advocate for the police station being on the east side of the highway. And we think about access, pedestrian access. As I was sitting there listening to this, I was thinking about all the effort that went into the strategic plan for transportation and mobility around the community. And so I see it, and I live up in Haystack Heights and I walk all over the place, is that perhaps there's an opportunity to kind of link those two, right? And so we have that sidewalk that goes up to Haystack Heights. And again, I don't know how the easement works with ODOT and the highways, but a way of building, a pedestrian access, maybe not just directly parallel to Highway 101, but further up, right? That could bring access to the police station. In my mind, maybe takes a little bit of creative thinking and design, but it is an opportunity. We think so much here about cars. We're not very bicycle friendly here at all. And of course, people walk a lot, but.
What about City Hall?
As I'm sitting here, huh?
What about City Hall?
City Hall, I think that, City Hall can stay here.
I think it's going to still require a lot of creative thinking and imagination. But when we're thinking about, I can really appreciate the desire to keep it, this is a community center, even though it's not a community center. This is where critical infrastructure resides for the city. In an emergency, a lot of that critical infrastructure can take place elsewhere. And we learned that during the pandemic, as well as many other opportunities when we've had extended power outages and big storms in the past. But the police station and the EOC, in my mind, is a non-negotiable. It's a complete contradiction if we're talking about keeping it here or compromising on that absolutely critical piece of the infrastructure. And if we're going to invest in it, we need to do it right from the very, very beginning. And so in my mind, it's just both, of course, are very, very important. The police station's a non-negotiable in terms of its location and making sure that it's accessible and least risk for harm in any type of emergency. Thank you. Bob?
I realized that I didn't underline this at all, like what I was suggesting for one thing to put it at the back of the lot. I'm not sure how much difference that makes, but my point more is that I don't know, probably all of you have walked from various places in town up to wherever the places that we're supposed to go to. If we're trying to go uphill, I've done that, and when I got up there, I said, I think, is it over here? Is it over there? In any event, even walking from here, I think an awful lot of people, and even without trees down and wires down and so forth, would have a hard time getting up to the assembly area in 20 minutes. It's pretty steep. I think having a tower with a flat top that people can walk up to that is on this site. If there's a large or extra large tsunami, would be a difference of thousands of lives of people who would not be able to make it up out of the inundation zone if they had to walk up to where that is now versus being able to come to the back of this lot and go around, have a very large assembly area on top of the building.
Thank you.
We're not going to ask some questions or anything. Okay.
Yeah.
I just had a question about the police station standalone size. Do we have that information?
Our final analysis of that was putting us at about, I think it was about 6,000 square feet standalone.
Thank you.
Mary Beth?
A couple of things flip around.
One at a time.
Yes, they won't all come out at once, I promise. When Bob was talking about how long it takes you to get to a safe assembly site. I work downtown. If the big one hits when I'm at work, if I sprint, I will get there. But otherwise, and that's assuming that I can actually sprint. Otherwise, I'm going to be one of the casualties. If there were a tower somewhere between, that would be really nice because I might have a hope of getting to safety. Along with everybody that I'm trying to haul up the hill with me. The other thing though that I'm thinking is, oh my gosh, I heard a four-story building here. And I'm thinking what it would look like would be kind of like the monolith out of 2001 Space Odyssey in the middle of Cannon Beach. However, if it would make it a safer place to work and live and visit, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But those are a couple of the things that bumped into my brain while I was thinking about this. I do think the police deserve a place where they are safe and have clean working air. I know that's not the case right now. And I really think that the people who work in City Hall need a place where they are safe at work, because if a big earthquake hits, it's going to be difficult to go anywhere. The other idea that I had was about EOC. Right now, EOC is here at City Hall. It's not rolled into the police department. It's part of City Hall. All of the materials that the counselors are going to need to make decisions are here. If you have EOC over there and you have City Hall here, I want you to all think about getting over to that EOC after a big earthquake and a tsunami. And then I want you to think about where all your materials are and how you're going to access them. So those are some other things that popped into my brain while I was listening to all of this. And there you have my brain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Is there anyone online that would like to?
One back here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Come on up.
Admitted now.
I just have one question. My name's Terry.
And we need a mailing address.
Terry Grimo. I live and work here. I work downtown. I've heard so many rumors, and that's part of why I came tonight is I'd love to know the truth. I've heard that there needs to be 10 or 12 cells in the new police station. Is that a rumor?
Yeah.
Oh, good. How many?
We don't need any.
Thank goodness, because it made it sound like we wanted to be Miami Beach or something, and we were going to have all these drunks that we were going to bring in. I mean, we have drunks, but. My only other concern is, of course, money, like everybody. I don't want anybody, I want the police to have the very best. I want our firemen, sorry, it's been a long day. I want the firemen to have the very best that they can. This weekend, I happened to be on the beach 3 different times and watched the rescues, not the rescues that happened. I want it to be safe. But we got to remember, we're a tiny town. When there are tourists here, there's what, 1,700 of us. So I just love transparency. I would never be able to tell my husband, let's build a house, but we don't really know what it's going to cost. We're not really sure how big it's going to be. We're not really sure about the materials. And I get it because you're just in the planning stage. But being as this is a public forum, I feel like we as voters should be able to see everything, every nickel and dime. I don't think anybody's saying we need marble, but there are a lot of, having built a few homes here, there are a lot of different cost saving measures that I know all engineers and everything know. Plywood is a great thing for building. None of us want to live in a plywood building, but you get my point. There, you don't have to use the most expensive materials to build safe buildings. I want us to be able to be proud. I want us to be able to say, look at our cute city hall. Look at our police station. Isn't that great? They have all the internet. We would all like better internet, but they have the best internet, the best everything. That's important. I just want us to be really transparent. I feel like I hear all these rumors and I have a hard time getting a breakdown of the costs. Like, could I look online and see the plans for now?
Yes.
Okay.
And you get the other information you're asking for. I think you talked about the number of cells, that kind of thing. The number of cells, that's all in the program.
In the
program, it's called.
Okay.
Facility program. And so it talks about how many.
I looked once and I couldn't find it, but
Yeah.
I can try again.
Yeah.
I mean,
And if you have trouble, give us a call and somebody can send you the link or something.
Okay, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. This is your evening too. I really, really do. And I'm not standing up here saying you're horrible. I don't think that at all. I just have heard so many rumors. I wanted to get some facts. So
Thank you. Thank you for getting facts.
Yeah, that also, I would like, I mean, I've heard a lot of rumors too, and I'm wondering if the presentation tonight made any difference to people. I'd like to hear from more people in the audience. I really would. Okay, well, that's
I would
fine.
like to hear.
No, I'd like to hear from them because
I'm joking.
I'd like to see, you know.
I think we need to hear from everybody here.
Yeah, and especially people who have expressed a lot of concern about the plans. And then here's the chance to you know, to get information, to express your opinion, and they're silent. So I'd like to see more people speak.
Okay, Sam?
I agree with Lisa a lot. Hearing from more folks is going to help, but I also want to reiterate the fact that everything I've heard tonight, I've heard last year, I've heard the year before. Every comment other than specific numbers, which always change. So I just want to mention the fact that it's good that we are always concerned about all of the certain points, but at some point we have to step up and say, hey, decide. We all know probably from the past that I'm a proponent of splitting and putting the police station down at Southwind and Gower. I think that is the most logical for the operation of our community, so that we have the idea of the central access to our government, but we also have the emergency access and the control that an EOC that is protected can be. Trying to make some notes here just to help to make things a little clearer, and I've asked this before. When we say cost per square foot, always answer cost for construction. That's what everybody understands. They don't understand the fact that all of a sudden you're adding in all the furnishings, all the carpets, and all the other stuff that make the city run. That's understandable later on. But lay people need to know what is the cost for construction, because that's what everything is compared to in the normal layperson's dialogue. Emergencies have been talked about a lot. Yes, tsunami is scary. It's a big, bad beast, but it's 99.9%. Everything else is an emergency too. Tsunami is so freaking rare. It's good to be prepared for it, but it's highly unlikely in any of our lifetimes. But again, it's good to prepare. I'm always trying to do that. The idea of having a functioning city hall in a danger zone means it's something that would be lost, but it wouldn't be if we still had another place to go. So here you have redundancy, which is far more important, I think, in most mitigation arguments than strengthening. Let's see, I had another point here. The cost of the building relating specifically to size, I think, is an error, because design makes a big difference. You can design the same amount of square feet that cost more or less. We could gild this thing and it would cost a heck of a lot more. But you can also be very modern types of construction. There are other types of foundations. We don't need pilings in a single story building. You can do grade beams. You can do a floating foundation. The post office downtown is a floating foundation. That probably will be the only building. It'll be cockeyed, but it'll be the only building still standing downtown. Pilings are expensive and difficult, and they cause actually as much damage sometimes in an earthquake as does the earthquake, because they don't move that much and everything else is. A wood frame construction building tends to survive better than a hard masonry type building in an earthquake, especially if we're talking about a single story. Another point that was brought up is during construction. We have a 10,000 square foot building that we're planning. We got one here that's already here. We have about a 3,000 square foot lot, I believe. That's about, we've got tons of space on the east side. Depending on how the building is designed, it doesn't have to be a big box like this one is. It can be nicely laid out. It can be sectional. There's all kinds of ways to do things that are different so that this construction does not have to be as invasive of the parking during our busy season. And that's scheduling also. Last point that I want to make, and I will find more later on, is, and the young lady that was just spoke brought up kind of the point that a normal homeowner, when they're building new, they don't come out and say, oh, just build me something and I'll pay for it. They say, I only got this much money. Design me something that matches my budget. We need to set the budget first and then say, how much can I build for that? You don't say, how much can I build? And then find money for it. Thank you.
You, Tim.
Tia did have her hand up. Now she's gone. Oh, she's here.
Is there anyone online that would like to speak? Deb?
I'm gonna vote for them both being up on Southwind for emergency reasons. And I think if there was a tsunami or an earthquake, I think Public Works, Rick, Bruce, all of them should be together. And because I think it's just a smart, this is what I think. And just for emergency purposes, I think it's better, to get up there and get out of the, whether it's an earthquake or a tsunami, would be a lot more complicated if they were down here. So that's all I have to say.
What if it's at night?
Thank you.
I said an earthquake can happen at night too.
Yeah,
Just as
we go on our schedules.
Right.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak that's online? Deb, your hand's back up. Is there a reason?
Lower your hand.
Want me to unmute her?
Yeah.
You went away.
I think she did that. Okay. Anyone else online? Want to hear from you? Oh, Curtis, we didn't want to hear from you. Curtis, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to comment briefly on the tsunami risk. The current modeling that the state has been doing suggests that we have a 10 to 15% chance of seeing that extra large tsunami in the next 50 years. So, we may not see it in 50 years, we may not see it in 100, but it's not in the 1 to 5%, or, it's a 1 in 10 chance of seeing that tsunami sometime in the next 50 years.
Thank you. Come on up. It's sure nice to see new faces.
Well, I just had questions. My name.
First off, your name and your mailing address, please.
My name is Camille Slater. I'm gonna be honest, I do not know my address if we just moved. But I live here in South. So I guess I just had questions. First of all, I think moving into this town and living in this town, there's a tsunami risk no matter what, and that's just the choice of living in this town. But with all the talk of, talking about, I don't know how to word this. I guess I'm just interested in all this talk about tsunami safety and making sure people are safe. Is there any questions with providing funds for first responders because they will be the ones responding to those emergency situations? And I know with the food tax, the fire station gets an amount of that. And I think the original plan was that they were going to get more than they do now. Even with the lifeguarding this last weekend, you know, I think we're wanting to start lifeguarding season early. And the city did not let them. Am I correct with that information?
No.
I'm not. Okay, so that's a rumor. Good to know, because I was floating around town. So I just didn't know if there's any consideration in funding the first responders with, you know, because I don't know, I guess a $25 million building to an outsider doesn't make a lot of sense when the fire station is struggling to get funding and, you know, they run off of volunteers. And so I don't know if there's any knowledge about that. And I don't know if that makes sense, but just as an outsider, it's just a question that a lot of us have and are wondering about, because I feel like first responders should be a first in consideration for a tsunami, because they will be out there while we're all running for the hills. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, or if you guys provide any information of that.
I think
Their building's in the same situation as this one is.
Right. Right. I guess I'm more talking about funding full-time firemen, or even with, I guess, like lifeguards in general too, because I feel like a lot of fund is going towards this building, which is fine, I guess, but not a lot of funding is going towards people who'd be saving lives.
Jason, would you like to speak to that?
Now that they're two separate things, there's a fire district and the city.
Yeah, yeah, I guess, I don't know, that's kind of what I'm wondering, is I just have a lot of questions about it and how that works, and
It's separate funding.
Yeah.
sources. Of course, the lifeguard program is funded through the city,
yeah,
and the fire department's in charge of personnel.
okay, perfect.
I don't specifically know what your question is.
I don't know, I guess from the outside perspective, it's just and maybe because I'm young and this is my first time being here, it's just hard to wrap my mind around spending a lot of money on a building like this and not on other things. I guess it's just a concern, and I guess a lot of it was rumors floating around town. But yeah, it's just questions of, you know, the food tax and all of that, but I'm sure I've confused everyone, but it's just general information. You cleared it up with like the separate things, because I guess in my head, I thought the city, but it's good to know the thing. But just know there's concerned people out there with how our money's being used. So, yeah.
It would be a really good idea for you to arrange a tour of the current facility that the police department, and City
No, I
Hall.
would love to. I would love to.
Some good tour guides here.
Yeah, no, I would definitely love to.
Yeah, that will give you a perspective that you might not have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I agree.
And,
Okay.
and compare the police department to what we're talking about. And just as a reminder, we're talking about $9 million for
Yeah.
first responders.
Yes, no,
Our,
I agree.
our police department outside of the tsunami inundation zone, that when a disaster,
Yeah.
when and if one does happen, that our first responders are safe and have a place to operate from, and then conduct emergency operations. So it's a lot of what we're talking about.
And also remember that our first responders are, at least in the city, are our police officers, and they are fully funded. I mean, they receive salaries. We just went through a budget session and contract negotiations and so forth. So they are fully funded.
Yeah.
This fire district is separate from the city. It's a separate taxing district from the city. So they do have half of the food tax, and to discuss how they spend it, you would have to go to
Yeah.
fire district and talk.
Right. Well, with that, I think having the police station on the East Hills would be a great idea. So.
But thank you for your interest, and thank you.
Yeah, no, I just am here to learn, so I appreciate hearing everything. So,
Okay,
well,
get on that tour bus. Go ahead.
My name is Charlotte Euler, P.O. Box 746. I moved here from Portland, Oregon, and it has been a drastic change. And one of it is the police department and the security I feel. And I leave my home I live up in Elk Creek Road, so I leave my home at 5:30 in the morning, and often I'll see the police on 101. And I feel that I have the protection. And I feel that $25 million is not too much to pay for safety and a feeling of security, and knowing that if something goes wrong, we have a police force and we'll have somebody behind us.
And I always tell this to people because I'm always trying to protect myself in multiple ways, you know, like having candles in the house, lantern if the electricity goes out. And anyone in this room, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever told yourself, I wished I wasn't careful? And remember, the most, all these people that have had tsunamis and the earthquakes in the world, sometimes it was the very first one. And at the very least, they need a new police station. That's the first. Secondly, if they're in a better position, what we're seeing, what's happening in our society, and it's spreading, we will have better protection. And in the case of tsunami, we can rely on them. And I feel peace of mind is worth 25 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
Nancy Littell, Post Office Block 734. First of all, there's nothing we can do about all the rumors that fly around. But it certainly raises my hackles when I hear people say we're not transparent. How much more transparent can we be? There are meetings every day. There's a city bulletin that comes out. Everything is online. Anybody who wants to know, I think, can know. And I think we've done a good job of being transparent. You know, how many people who really wanted to know about this building are here tonight? All the people who already know, probably. That being said, one of the things that, and the transparency, holy cow, you guys do coffee with the counselors, which I showed up for at 10 o'clock today.
Oh,
You know, online, they have a schedule.
YouTube.
Like coming to the city council meeting at 7 instead of 6 when I first started coming. I firmly believe the police department needs to be funded on the other side of the highway. And the sooner we can get that going, the better we're all going to be. Something that Bruce said earlier struck me in that I'm talking about the size of the offices don't need to be so big because we don't need filing cabinets. So if we don't need filing cabinets because it's all electronic and online, and as long as that stuff is stored someplace else, the city can operate from anywhere. Like somebody else said, the pandemic has more than proved that. Let's see, I think City Hall should be here. I think it should be a one-story thing, and we take our chance as a city as we all do as homeowners. I don't want to see a 40-foot building. That's not much taller really than a whole lot of buildings in town. My house, one of my houses is 28, so it's not that taller than my house even. But I don't think that's necessary. I know it's a big risk. I know we can leave this building. We could be standing right here. I could be standing here right now and the earthquake could happen and we'd all haul ass up to the hill. You know, we would just go because that's what we've been trying to do once the earth stops shaking. We've had plenty of meetings on the getting people out of town. One of the things that when the tsunami comes, and I don't think it's an if, I think it's a when. Yeah, people are going to die. There's going to be trees everywhere. There's going to be electric fires. There will be nothing for us except for us. And the more that we can do to prepare ourselves by having the police station on the other side with the first responder being able to be there, and the fire department will work out what they're going to do. They'll do it. You know, it's a pity they just built that building, but them's the breaks. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
That's
Good hands are still coming up.
That's what we want.
Want to speak.
No, I'm always the last one.
I'll keep it in mind. Les Sinclair, Box 1394, Cannon Beach. So I really came here just to listen to facts. And I've gotten a lot of good stuff and I appreciate, everything that's being shared and of course, all the work that you do and the great job they're doing. Okay, for the record, I prefer to have City Hall here. I completely understand why the police department needs to be somewhere else, although I prefer it to be centrally located too. That's fine. What I really wanted to say is I'm ready to move on. we need to start seeing some designs that we can start talking about. I mean, all the questions that are all about estimates and, well, you know, I mean, we need to start moving forward. I don't know that we're really holding up the process that much. Sounds like we're getting more seismic data. They're continuing to look at the ODOT, you know, issues up there. That's great. But we need to get some designs that people can look at and talk about. And so I would encourage us to come to a decision and let's move forward. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thanks, Les.
Hannah?
Hannah Busher, PO Box 97. Honestly, I don't really care where the police station and city hall are. I do want to talk about funding though, because I know that meeting is coming later and I'm just curious, everyone in the audience who has said $25 million sounds great, want city hall here, police station here. Are you guys willing to pay for it with your property tax?
Yes.
Yes.
Some of it.
There,
Some of it.
they said it.
Some of it.
So as I've heard, you know, lodging tax. And I keep saying property tax is very low. I've sent Gary numbers on that. I'd be happy to send it all to you all too. But I just want to show that there are individuals in town who would be willing to pay property tax for these things that they've said they need for 25 years or however long. I don't know, haven't been paying attention for that long. So just please keep in mind that there are people who are willing to pay for it with their property tax and not just tourists. Tourists are bad. They need to pay for everything. So thank you.
Oh, Dr. Wayne, your hand is up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, I just want to say I'm ready to pay for it. I think it's a great idea. 25, whatever it takes. We need to have these 2 buildings done.
Okay.
I'm gonna check to, guys.
I'll sell a horse.
I like
Okay.
you.
All right.
Check out the city of Cannon Beach.
Thank you. Anyone else? Margot?
I have one lingering comment.
Okay.
You know, having worked in the public sector a long time myself, that public financing is very complicated and it's a shared responsibility, right? The health, the well-being, the safety of our community is a shared responsibility. And it's between those who visit this beautiful, wonderful place that we want to protect, those of us who choose to live here. And we all do that in various and creative ways. And then all the other diverse opportunities that we have to tap into resources. But just fundamentally, it is a shared responsibility. It's not an either or. And I think, and I trust, and I know that as you all deliberate for all of the different services that are provided within these infrastructures, that's taken into consideration. And so I would be remiss if I didn't share that last thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make one comment about the getting to the design. I think there's nothing more than we want to do is to get you to. Sorry, I'll try to speak louder. But there's nothing more that we want to do than to get you guys to design, but we also don't want to waste your money designing on 2 sites. So we've been very frugal about, we haven't proceeded with design. We've done what we can to get as much information for everyone. And once, I mean, if the authorization was to design both sites and continue, we could do that. It doesn't seem to respecting your fiscal responsibility, that didn't seem like the right path at the time.
We understand that.
Good point.
Deb's got her hand back up.
Okay, Deb.
Is it still up?
I'm on my husband's computer and I can't tell. It says lower hand and that lower hand is up. And anyway, I'm sorry. What can we do about all the rumors? I mean, the emails and the house is on fire and everything, and we don't have facts lined up. And can we ask that stop? because it's kind of like,
First.
it's upsetting that, I mean, I'm hearing it all over town because I'm interviewing people all the time. And people have got grandiose ideas of fear and stuff. So I really like this because facts are coming out and people are communicating. And you guys don't have time to answer all of the mistruths that are going around. And we don't need that kind of stirring it up thing in our community because it's not healthy. So, and we want to just get this done. I'm with, let's just make a decision and get this. The police station is, we got to do it. And I don't think that we should have all taxpayers. I think it should be shared responsibility because tourism costs a lot of money, the tourists that come in. So I'm for a shared situation and coming up with a diversified approach. And I'm just for getting this police station done now. Get it done. We need them in a place. They need a home and this has been going on too long.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff?
Hey, Eric Western, again. I know we've kind of now shifted away from talking about specifically location, but there's been a lot of positivity towards the $25 million price tag of splitting the location, and now some discussion about the funding sources. And I know that's a full discussion to be had later, but and I'm sure we'll have a good long meeting on the 31st, I think.
The 30th.
Yeah, about that. So I keep it relatively brief, but I kind of want to throw a pile of numbers out at you that are probably going to be too much to process all at once. But the Economist, when it was presented to the city for the food tax, it was estimated that 95% of the funds that were coming in that would be paid for, that would be the food tax. 95% of those funds would be provided by tourists that come from 50 miles or greater away. So the food tax that's coming in is 95% paid by tourism. That covers, if you're looking at the $25 million budget, that covers 62.5% of that total budget for the 25 million. So you're already at 62.5% covered. Probably a little bit less than that because 95% of it is only tourism. So a very high portion of that is already paid for by explicitly tourism. So that's, the tourists are pulling their fair share there. And then lodging tax by itself right now already covers significantly more than what the tourists cause in expenses in town. So you're talking over 75 to 80% of the total budget is funded for by lodging tax. And then this discussion about property tax. Many of the homes that are very high value homes across the beachfront, and then a lot of the lots, especially lots like the Hallmark and Surf Sand, those are huge assessed value properties that an increase in property tax would disproportionately affect them, which is paid for by tourism again. So that would be tourists paying for that increase in property tax as well. So there's a lot of input from tourists, even if you go with a property tax increase. So the dollar figures that would be paid for by residents that are living in town would be significantly smaller still than that's paid for by visitors with the rentals and the retail shops and all that stuff that all have higher assessed values than homes in town. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on the council have anything they'd like to add?
So when are we going to make a decision?
Yeah.
Are we going to make a decision tonight?
No,
It's not an official meeting.
it's a work session, but I mean, we have to have
We have to have a decision.
and we have to have the funding meeting.
Right, absolutely.
We need the funding meeting first and then the decision, or which way?
Yeah,
Which way?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we,
In my mind, we do.
can we share where we're at with our thoughts now on citing ourselves?
I'm willing to.
Well, I am too.
Yeah. I would like the police station there and City Hall here.
Same here. Absolutely.
That's my view as well.
I'm leaning that way, but I'm willing to hear Nancy make a case for everything east of the highway.
Well, I still think that we should put the city hall east of the highway, because I have studied enough of the tsunami situation and I know, what was it? 10 years ago, they were saying every 330 years and we're 20 years away. That was 10 years ago. So we're getting close to the average time when we have a 9.0 tsunami. And I don't care what, I know Curtis said it was 10 to 15% chance within the next 50 years, but I kind of doubt that, frankly. But so I'm concerned about that. I think also we would be saving money in construction costs to build it on the east side. And I would like to be sure that the city hall is safe so that we can continue to build our community back if anything does destroy it. Which, if anything does, any natural disaster destroys the community, the city hall would be in the path of that destruction. So, and who knows how much it would be destroyed, but it would be affected. So I think that, you know, I guess I'm playing it safe by being on the east side. Doesn't mean that we can't build something here as a center or a plaza or something that would draw people here in a community sense. If people are leaning toward having it here, I would go along with it. I'm not gonna battle over it, but that's just the way I feel. I feel that it really makes much more sense to build it with the police department up and on the east side.
Yeah, there is the cost savings. There is the cost savings related to temporary offices. There's not a disruption of Midtown for that construction period of 12 to 14 months. And there's a potential opportunity to do something with Gower Street and the site that may serve some other community needs. And I like those things too. But I think I would say here for the city hall.
I think here, for the sake of the community, for the sake of accessibility. The other thing I find interesting in this whole analysis is that 1/3 of every 24-hour period, people are in the city hall. The rest of the time you're at home or asleep. A tsunami and an earthquake can happen in that other, period of time. I mean, the other 16 hours.
I'm not worried about people being in here at the time of the tsunami. I'm worried about access to the things that are needed in order to keep us going as a community after a disaster.
Getting there could be a problem. As I said, for the city, for the office staff, for city employees, who knows? I don't know. I mean, it's just, if you have the earthquake happen while you were in the office, well, that's great. But, I don't know. I don't see that as a safety valve to me. And I'm a safety person too, but that doesn't make me feel more secure at all to have the city hall across the highway. I mean, it doesn't relieve that anxiety of earthquake, tsunami, having the police station there does. Obviously, because they're in and out all 24 hours.
Sam, did you just get tired of sitting?
I would like to add one thing to Gary's list. Just consider there's a deficit by increasing the traffic access.
Yeah, I'm worried.
I'm sorry.
There would be a deficit if all of City Hall is up there. You've got a higher traffic impact, so it would be a bigger intersection.
And that's a huge unknown and helped me make my decision.
Yeah, me too.
I've always dreamed of having Southwind like we planned when we bought it. And I know it's not going to happen. For many, many reasons.
And if the cost included a category 4 overpass, well, that would be great, but it does.
Right.
I like Margot's trail idea too, but.
Definitely. Okay. Oh, Jan, you're ready to go. Well, that worked. Okay, anybody else want to say anything? So I'd like to thank everyone for their input. Obviously, we've got lots of tough decisions still to make, and we need you to keep involved in the process. And again, really nice to see new people here. Not that we don't appreciate, not the old people, but frequent visitors,
Frequent flyers.
frequent flyers to City Hall. And keep involved. We appreciate it. And so if no one has anything else to say, meeting's adjourned.